This is Early Exchange, where we shape policy and advance development with our conversation. Today, we'll be looking at how AI can broaden the impact of artificial intelligence and how it can help to maximize the gains when it comes to economic growth. As IMF is insisting that nations needs to prepare for the disruption that may arise with the use of artificial intelligence. As you know that I'm not always alone on this program, let me let you know that in case you're wondering where's Blessing. She's here to also give you the best of programming today. Good morning.
Good morning, Femi. You look like you're about to go for one grand event to enjoy yourself. I see the weekend wasn't enough. It spilled on to Monday.
When you're in business of shaping policy, you're always in position to also look good and get better.
Okay.
So looking good is also part of our business.
Oh, yes. And this business of yours, I say, is good on you.
Thanks for the compliment.
All right. Today happens to be Monday, and it's the 8th day in the month of July 2024. So a lot of persons have started evaluating how they performed for the first half of the year and making projections for the rest half of the year. And part of that projection and re-strategizing is using AI to enhance what they do. So many businesses that weren't making use of wearing digital have now gone digital, and they're using more tools to enhance productivity. But as with their AI, some people fear that the more innovations come, the more AI innovations come, and the more digitized that things and processes get to be, it might threaten the jobs of lots of people. But the IMF seem to have made recommendations that would be solutions to this fear. So the IMF is recommending fiscal policy to enhance the gains of AI. What's your thoughts, Femi?
Yeah, you see, it's very important for every innovation, like it's often the existence for any kind of innovation. You have the good side and the bad side. Now, artificial intelligence is dated back in the 1950s, where some scientists came together to perform some experiment. But now it's becoming, the wave of the moment. It's becoming a general thing. It's been commercialized. Unlike when it was exclusive to some people or to some experts in the past who within their space or in the cover of their experiments were using it for certain reasons and to achieve certain purposes. But now that it's in the public space, that's why IMF is coming up with this narrative. There's a need to have fiscal policies to ensure the responsible use of artificial intelligence. And when you talk about fiscal policy, you talk about government spending in terms of taxes and regulations that should be put in place to ensure that these things are used in a way that you will not jeopardize the human rights, or you bring openness or sensitivity into the needs of human beings. Of course, the use of artificial intelligence is to enhance human intelligence, whereby you call computer-based kind of intelligence, but it cannot exist in isolation. You still need the human element in human input for artificial intelligence to be in place. And that's why IMF had a conference or a meeting and said, okay, there's a need for governments of nations to come together and take it with a sense of seriousness, because the disruption that might arise with the use of artificial intelligence as regards global economy, as regards technology, even politics, the all spheres of life, as far as human beings are concerned. So it's important for governments or nations to come up with a narrative, like a form of regulation or a framework, like a guideline as regards the use of artificial intelligence. Now, the concerns globally could be the fact that if this kind of tools falls into the wrong hands or unprofessional hands, what might be the impact of that on the larger society? So there was another conference where a group of experts came together like 2 years ago. They created what you call like a guideline for the use of artificial intelligence, about 10 of them, to guide openness and transparency. So what it means is, in the course of your duty, you don't jeopardize the openness that is necessary for the human society, and to also ensure that you have that inclusiveness in your activities. Part of what is also put in place is to ensure that there are rules, guidelines, regulation as regards the use of artificial intelligence. You're aware, starting at the point there was a move to talk about the social media bill in Nigeria, where some people misconstrue to be the fact that you want to jeopardize people's openness or right to freedom or information. But the essence of having this kind of bill or laws is to ensure that you ensure sense of responsibility in the use of this equipment. So it might also be necessary for some nations to come up with guidelines as regards the use of artificial intelligence. The conversation is ongoing, which is why this kind of conversation is necessary to put the right framework in place to ensure that in using artificial intelligence responsibly, the word of sense of responsibility, it's also something that is very crucial.
Yeah, and the IMF is also concerned about how this could result to income inequality, because some persons may lose their job and some persons who have the skills
Oh,
they
yes.
begin to earn so much more than others. So they're suggesting that governments of various countries channel resources to train and educate people so people can upskill and not lose their jobs. And even for those who might be affected and lose their jobs, there should be some form of welfare, social welfare for them. And they're also looking towards taxation, so taxing the rich, so to speak, or increasing in corporate income tax so that the proceeds from that are channeled towards social welfare. But beyond what the IMF has recommended, I think people should take it as personal responsibility. You do not wait for your head to be cut off before you begin to think of what to do ahead of time. We're in the time where generative AI is the in thing. Many businesses and even many industries have been revolutionized by generative AI. So if you're in any sector that you know that, of course, I do not think that there will be any sector left. Every sector would go with the AI thing, but the level of impact may vary. So whatever industry you are in, I think it's high time people begin to take it as a personal responsibility to upskill and not wait for them to lose their jobs, because employers want to maximize productivity as much as they want to reduce cost. So if they feel that going a different route, maybe using more AI than human beings, will be better for them, they will go that route. But if you provide, because you've also established the fact that AI by itself cannot run, it also needs human input. But if you have proof that you are very much relevant, then of course your job will be safe. And some persons might even be able to get better opportunities with AI because they've developed skills in that area. So more than government will want to do, it's you who is at the center of this. I mean, individuals are at the center of this. So you owe yourself a duty to upskill.
We're still looking at the role of fiscal policy in maximizing the gains from artificial intelligence. As IMF has insisted, there's a need for nations to have the proper fiscal policies to ensure maximizing the gains from artificial intelligence. Let's begin our business of shaping policy in this regard by bringing in our own in-house analyst, Sam Orovwuje, who joins us this morning. Glad you have joined us this morning.
Good morning, Femi.
Good
My
morning.
pleasure.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. When it comes to policy, you are an expert in that, which is why you're the right man for this conversation. Now, artificial intelligence is becoming the rave of it. The moment we started that conversation last week, where we talked about the impact of the music industry. But now we want to look at the impact of having the right fiscal policies in maximizing the gains from artificial intelligence, which is why IMF is coming up with this narrative. Talk to us. Why do you think it's important to have the right fiscal policies in guiding the use of artificial intelligence and also maximizing the gains?
Thank you very much indeed, Femi. I think let's put in perspective, generative AI is posing a danger in the workplace. And there are worries that once this comes through, some people are likely to lose their job. That's one argument. On the other hand, this we call it create jobs as well, because those who are skilled in using AI machines and generative AI, we gain traction into so many companies that require their expertise. But then the occasional paper published recently by the IMF is suggesting that for us to be able to close the gap that will impact organizations and companies as a result of generative AI, there's a need for the fiscal regime to be strengthened in a way that when people eventually lose their job, technically speaking, government should be able to find a way to provide adequate education that will retool them or reskill them for other jobs. So a fiscal policy regime, in a way, will provide some support for government to be able to enhance the reskilling capability of those that are likely to be displaced from the workplace. So I think people should not really worry about losing job. Rather, they should find a way to reskill themselves, particularly in this new age where technology is a driver and enabler of productivity. So once we're able to strike a balance between those who are losing their job because of technology, then people should be trained in a way that they become useful in other areas. Then even upscaling in terms of technology education is equally important. So I think that paper is emphasizing the need for fiscal policies to be strengthened to support AI innovation across the world.
Now, even with the recommendations of the IMF, what do you think would be the challenge with implementation? There are governments that may have the resources to embark on this kind of training. There are nations where the governments are struggling with resources and it may be impossible. But what do you see the challenges of implementing the recommendations of IMF in using fiscal policy to enhance the gains of generative AI?
Why the gains of generative AI is very important. Some of these countries that IMF paper is addressing is that why generative AI is potentially okay in some part of the world. Even some other countries are finding it difficult to even embrace technology as a driver in terms of productivity. So first and foremost, IMF should find a way to leverage on the technology they have and how they can support member states to see how they can deploy generative AI in the first instance so that technology can drive productivity. So once productivity is okay, then the government fiscal policy should be able to support those gains, particularly in terms of the likelihood that some people will lose their job, so that you can put a kind of social protection that protect those who are likely to lose their job. So first and foremost, IMF has the responsibility to provide an ecosystem that will support governments in terms of deploying technology to enhance productivity. So when that is done, if the productivity is enhanced, then the fiscal regime will be strengthened to support those who are likely to be out of work, who now can be reskilled in terms of apprenticeship, retraining, and even training in terms of technology, so that that can enhance the general productivity of nations.
All right, before we talk about the risk and some of the challenges, let's look at the gains, which IMF is talking about, the fact that the fiscal policy will help in maximizing the gains. What are these gains as regards the use of artificial intelligence, especially in the workplace?
I think generally, if you summarize that occasional paper, it's showing that the potential in the marketplace, particularly using generative AI as a mechanism for productivity. Once productivity is enhanced, then there will be more disposable income. Then government is able to tax the organized private sector. And in that regard, once more incomes are valuable to people, then government can really gain potentially, particularly from AI and the ecosystem that drive technology as an enabler for productivity.
Talking about taxation, the IMF also recommends increase in corporate income tax and then channel the proceeds to social welfare. Would that be a boomerang effect of such policy?
I think it has to be country specific. They cannot make a blanket policy statement where in some environment, the operating business environment is so tough, even for corporations. They are even declaring losses, and you are going to increase corporate tax. Where would that money come from, where they are struggling in terms of productivity. But in any case, AI is an enabler in terms of productivity. So I think the encouragement by the IMF is to see how countries and organizations can deploy more of an artificial intelligence tool in terms of enhancing productivity. So if that is done and productivity is optimized, then you can talk about increment in corporate tax.
There's something IMF stated in this regard, and I would like to quote IMF so that will buttress your conversation. It says, this will require significant upgrades to social protection and tax systems around the world. Now, looking at the existing social protection laws or tax system, there might be loopholes, might not accommodate this kind of disruption that might come. So in terms of upgrade, what kind of upgrade should come to the social protection system and tax law to accommodate this looming, I don't want to use the word danger, but the looming reality of the fact that some people will lose their job or will not be in their comfort zone?
Femi, the point I'm trying to make here is that generative AI is an enabler. And once that is deployed adequately, that will enhance productivity. And when there's productivity, there will be more disposable income. And once there's more disposable income, people are able to pay taxes. And once those taxes are valuable for government, then the social protection framework can be strengthened. So I don't really see any loophole in terms of the social protection mechanism across the board. The only challenge there is that most countries, in terms of tax collection, they are not doing very well. So what they need to do is to see how the collection system is improved upon and that fiscal regime is sustained. Once you're able to strike a balance between the fiscal policy and, on the other hand, monetary policy, then the issue of social protection and the tax net that IMF is speaking about will be a thing of the past. But for me, my suggestion would be is that IMF should find a way to support countries to enhance technology in terms of deploying technology to enhance productivity. And once productivity is sustained, then the other issues and worries will not be there.
All right. Well, let's take a look at those who stand a chance to be more affected by this, the use of generative AI. Now, for the younger generation that are already computer savvy, a lot of them into already making use of the new AI models and even processes that we have. But what about those who belong to the older generation? What kind of specific attention can be paid to them?
Thank you very much. I think I read a report over the weekend that showed a danger, a potential danger, particularly in terms of education, where AI has become a commonplace for this generation. And the ability to deploy their God-given intelligence is equally threatened. So while making an attempt to answer your questions, the old generations that are trained in longhand, so to speak, in terms of deployment of the knowledge, they are more savvy even than those who are IT driven. Because when you even look at some of the communication models and the written communication from some of these people, leave much to be desired. But what is important is that there's nothing cast in stone. So people can be trained in new technology. And this hasn't got anything to do with age. There are older people who are equally savvy with generative AI in a way that it enables them to produce more. But then, like I mentioned earlier, the IMF itself must find a way to support governments and countries to improve on the use of technology, particularly AI, in a way that they can sustain productivity. And when this is done, then the intergenerational gap that you spoke to in terms of your question can be bridged, and the society will be better for it.
Let's take a look at what the Singaporean government has done in this regard. The Singaporean government did not wait for IMF to make recommendations ahead of time. It's subsidizing trainings for citizens, particularly those from 40 years old and above, to upskill. What's to learn from that by other nations?
The lesson is simple, is to be proactive in a way that before technology come through, then people should be able to anticipate changes in the global system that would disrupt work, even policy. So people need to be trained and reskilled before technology take them off the job places. So the Singapore example is a great lesson for other country to take advantage of. Even the age of 40, I think, is on the high side. They should be targeting people from their 30s in a way that they can train them, reskill them, reschool them, and so that they can learn, unlearn, and relearn new technologies for greater productivity.
Now, talking about this reskilling and upskilling, what should be the role of private organizations in these, and what incentives can be put in place to ensure that this reskilling is actually done in a way that you get results? This will require training, which will, cost will be attached to it. Individuals might be discouraged with the fact that they can afford some of this training. So to help people who may be disrupted in the workplace, what kind of mechanism should be put in place as regards upskilling, and also like a settlement package or an alternative package for those who might likely lose their jobs?
I think it would be a danger for organizations not to upskill their workforce, because if you don't do that, your business is likely to suffocate. So in terms of learning and development, companies have the requirement, as it were, to constantly train their workforce in line with the disruptive nature of organizations and companies. And uncertainty is the order of the day in the corporate world. So you need to invest more in terms of retooling, reskilling, upskilling the workforce. So if you don't do that, then there will be a danger that you're likely to go into extinction if you don't imbibe new technology, which is an enabler for greater productivity. On the other hand, the government can pull a kind of fund together to support companies in terms of their learning and development package, particularly in this era of uncertainty in terms of disruption, using AI as a mechanism in companies or organizations. So by and large, what is key is that companies must be able to anticipate, plan for their future, particularly to see how they can be in line with new technologies and new innovations and creativities that will impact productivity.
It is reported that jobs or tasks that are more repetitive are more at the risk of automation. So in this regard, what sectors should be paid attention?
I think there's no specific sector. All sectors must imbibe new technologies. So what you talk about in terms of new technology, they enhance productivity and service delivery. So I don't think, in my view, that any sector should be prioritized over the other.
But is there a chance that some sectors might be more affected than others when it comes to takeover of functions or tasks by generative AI?
No, I don't think so. Every sector is being disrupted by generative AI. So I don't think we should prioritize any sector. Every sector is as important. And I don't think some sectors are left in terms of the impact. Maybe if you look at our own climate, our own environment, where things are still done in a manual format, then you might think that some other sector should be prioritized against the other In the next 5 years, if you look at the World Economic Forum projection, some over 70% of the current job portfolios will be disrupted by generative AI. So companies that are looking forward in the horizon will know that if you don't prioritize AI in terms of your service delivery, then you are likely to go into extinction as an organization or a company.
All right, let's bring the conversation home. You have the US and UK and some other nations preparing for the disruption that might come as a result of the use of AI. Now, what do you expect Nigerian government to do as regards preparation for the looming disruption that is coming? You have nations. And interestingly, there's a need to have a guideline, if you agree, as regards the use of artificial intelligence, like a general framework. Do you think it's also necessary to have special laws guiding the use of AI, especially in the area of taxations, to have a general guideline and framework guiding the taxation as regards the use of artificial intelligence? I'm talking about the Nigerian space now.
I think the Nigerian government is a signatory to all international conventions and obligations. In that regard, therefore, some of those policy framework are already with us. So what the National Assembly need to do is to see how those gaps that exist in the current technology, communication, and IT space, as it were, should be improved upon to be able to take advantage of the disruptions that is in the system already, so that even when you're looking for foreign direct investment, once those technology are not well recognized in terms of policy framework, then it might be difficult to drive in investment. Therefore, those policy framework are there. The National Assembly need to review some, particularly the ones that has to do with tax collections, tax regime between a state, local government level and at the federal level. Once we're able to articulate those policy framework, then the new speed that is coming will not become a problem in terms of how we do business among nations.
Now, talking about problems, again, let's look at the implementation. Let's say governments buy into IMF's recommendation, but at the point of implementation, take Nigeria, for instance, where we do not have sufficient data of people in different sectors, the level of skills and the others. How would this be implemented? The reskilling.
I'm always worried when we say that we don't have data. We have data. I think the challenge is how do we synchronize our data system for national productivity. We have data. The data are there. But I think if I understand your question correctly, what we need to do, I mentioned the National Assembly that has the responsibility for lawmaking and oversight function. Once that is done, the relevant ministries and agencies of government will take it up from there. But there's no really worry, so to speak, because the framework, as it were, is already there. So how do we upscale and re-engineer the process in line with new technology? I think that would be the challenge. But if you look at it from the IMF perspective, that paper that was published recently, I'm sure that they will have written to their country representative on how they can engage, particularly government to government, with a view to see how sustainable this new fiscal policy regime to support generative AI will be pushed forward across the over 149 member country.
Let's look at some of the likely challenges as regards the introduction of tax regime for AI. Will that not amount to double taxation, for instance, if that is deployed?
No, are you saying that there will be a fragment in terms of taxation once you deploy AI as an organization, if I get that one correctly?
Yeah.
That's why I said earlier that first and foremost, let the IMF support countries so that they can improve on their productivity. Then the local laws or legislation will be improved upon. Once productivity is there, then people are willing to pay additional tax. But they should not consign themselves now to increasing corporate tax, because a lot of companies are struggling, even in terms of meeting their shareholder requirements. They are finding it difficult. So if you bring an additional taxation, you may be right whether it will amount to double taxation. I don't think it's really double taxation. It's just an element that is included into the tax regime. But then you must clean up for you to be able to tax people in that regard.
On the side of development, let's look at what the implication of government stepping in to upskill and to provide some form of social welfare for those who might lose their job. The implication that might have on them. For every person, people also owe themselves personal responsibility. Now, when government steps in, do you think it's going to make people lazy not to take that responsibility of upskilling themselves, but waiting on government to provide that for them? And where they're unable to upskill, they lose their job, there's something to fall back on.
No, I think the government is just a facilitator. If I use that concept of an enabler, I don't think it will make people lazy. The government just need to provide that policy framework and find a way to dovetail it into companies' policy. If you're going to use AI to drive your process optimally, when people are likely to lose their job, what do? You retrain those people before you exit them from the company. So government will just give you a kind of funding, a pool of fund that organizations or companies can draw on while trying to train or reskill the workforce that are likely to be affected. So I don't think that would make people to be lazy. But then people have personal responsibility for their development. Then company, on the other hand, too, has the responsibility to reskill or retool those people that are likely to exit their workplace so that the society get better for everyone.
All right, let's talk about the issue of cybersecurity now. What kind of obligation is expected of the government or agencies involved when the use of AI now becomes the norm, which is the norm now anyway? But what obligation is expected to protect the AI space or the cyberspace against any form of insecurity or threats that could arise with the use of AI? What are these obligations expected of government and the agencies related?
There are international framework for cybersecurity. Nigeria is a signatory to that. Within the national boundary, we have a special advisor on national security, and cyber security is part of that purview. So within the policy framework, there are policy documents already that take care of infraction into the cyberspace. So those policy frameworks. So we need to strengthen training, train security officers, particularly what you call security sector reform, where we talk about the police, the justice system, in a way that they can respond to the changing dynamics in the cyberspace based on the new law. So the laws are there. They have international obligations, conventions, and framework that protect that space. So what we need to do within our national boundary is to see how we can strengthen that space to avoid infraction into some of the activities of the men on the counterfeiting world that threaten that space.
So what will be the impact of this on the tech industry, since every company is turning to the use of AI? People who do not have the skills wanting to acquire the skill, those who already have it want to reskill, and companies want to modify their processes. So how will this impact the tech industry globally?
Well, the tech industry is moving on a larger scale. So what that means is that there will be new development, new impact in that space. So there will be more money for that space in terms of those who want to reskill, those who are already providing service, more opportunities in terms of their skill architecture which other people want to acquire from them. So I think that space is a space to be, and everybody is looking forward to that environment where technology speaks for everybody, for every company. So if you are not technologically inclined, then there's a likelihood that you might go into extinction. Just I use that word advisedly, meaning that if you can't keep up with technology, then there'll be no space for you to operate.
Okay, let's talk about the business opportunities now. In the midst of these concerns as regards to disruption, what are opportunities for investors, for people who engage in training? I'm happy you do that, for this kind of vacuum to take advantage of it. What are the business opportunities here?
The opportunities are enormous. The potentials are high. So those who are in that space, the business opportunities are higher. So what they need to do is to see how they can take advantage of those opportunities for national productivity. Those who are involved in soft skills in that area, software, hardware, and all that will have a place in terms of the opportunities that are bound in that industry. And I think the IT savvy young men, this is their time in terms of how they can impact on the organization, impact on their skills development effort to take advantage of generative AI, which I think is a major driver of business development. So once you're able to stay in touch with your IT skills, there will be no cause to worry about the future.
Thank you so much, Sam Orovwuje. You just need to move with the trend, which is generative AI. It's going to cut across different industries and sectors. No one needs to be left out. In order for you not to be left out, then you must upskill. Yes, governments might do their own part, but what is your own part? What is your own duty to yourself? Thank you again for being on the show.
My pleasure, Blessing.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.